Hey all, and welcome back to another episode of There's Danger Here. I'm Leilani, and yes, I know I'm a little bit late for this week's episode. However, with the holidays and me doing everything myself, with the podcast, sometimes we get a little behind. So here I am catching up. All right, so let's get into this next case, shall we? On March 26, 2018, a multiple fatality traffic accident was called in. The location was off the northern part of Highway 1, Mendocino County, California, at a dirt turnoff with no guardrails and a 75 to 80-foot drop. In the vehicle were two adult females and two juveniles. One juvenile was also outside of the car. After finding a driver's license, it is determined that they are the Hart family. Research proved that there were 6 total kids in the family, meaning there were still 3 children missing. But this tragedy turned sinister when the details came in. So, let's rewind this sort of to the beginning, shall we? Sarah and Jen Hart were a married couple, and they lived in Vancouver, Washington. But their family felt empty, and as a result, they began expanding through adoption. It all actually started in 2004 with Marcus, who was 5, Hannah, who was 2, and Abigail, who was 6 months. They were in Colorado County, Texas. Their mother had relinquished their rights after being caught in CPS cases for failing to get them proper medical attention. Sarah and Jen work through Permanent Family Resources Center for Adoption out of Minnesota. By 2006, the couple adopted all 3 children to keep the siblings together. The two took the children to speech therapy and kept up with their medication. The family at that time lived in Alexandria, Minnesota. At a follow-up, the children seemed to be thriving compared to their original home environment. Sarah and Jen were praised for their love and care for the children. Then, in 2008, Sarah and Jen were approved to adopt more children. This time, Jeremiah, Devontae, and Sierra, another set of siblings. Their biological mother was a drug user, and the state had removed the children. Their paternal aunt, Celestine, took over as guardian. She kept a clean home. She did wonderfully with the kids. But unfortunately, one day when she was at work, Celestine allowed their biological mother to visit the children. And of course, Murphy's Law, this is when CPS shows up. Upon finding her, the state decided Celestine's house was not safe either and immediately removed the children as an emergency. At the same time, back at the Hart home, an allegation comes to light that Hannah had made a report of being beaten with a belt. It is investigated, but the case of it is eventually closed due to lack of evidence. In June 2008, Devontae, Jeremiah, and Sierra are brought to Minnesota for a 6-month trial placement with the Hart family. On November 15th, 2010, Abigail stated her mom gave her an owie and pulled up her shirt to show her teacher at school. There are multiple bruises on her back and in the belly button area. It was reported that Abigail had a penny in her pocket and it fell out, and it made her mother mad. A former coworker reported getting a call from Sarah saying she needed to switch shifts because she spanked Abigail and it left bruises, and now police were involved. The coworker further reported she felt like Sarah was really just covering for Jen. Abigail also reported that it was Jen who was the one to hit her with her fists. However, on April 7th, 2011, Sarah gets arrested, and she pleaded guilty to domestic assault, reporting she put Abigail over a tub and spanked her, resulting in bruising on the stomach and backside. For this, she received 1 year of probation and community service. Between November 2010 and January 2011, 6 more allegations of abuse were called into CPS. Child welfare wouldn't substantiate the claim, citing lack of evidence. Jen started a social media rise during this time, uploading carefully crafted photographs portraying a happy, loving family. But it was all a facade. And after this, of course, the children are taken from public school into homeschool. And so, for a while, there aren't any more allegations. On June 28th, 2013, in West Lynn, Oregon, however, one of Jen's own friends calls CBS. The family was staying with them and they all ordered pizza, but cited that the parents really only gave the kids a small amount of pizza, not enough to really satiate any of them. And so during the night, one of the children woke up and ate the rest of the pizza. Jen discovered it in the morning and made all 6 children lay on an inflatable mattress with sleep masks on and their arms by their sides for 5 hours. When the friend brought up this as a concern, Jenna pretty much shirked her off and was like, this isn't a big deal or extreme. And then, within a couple days, another friend also made a call to CPS. Reports came in that the kids were like quote unquote trained robots. They knew not to say anything. That Jen only showed affection in order to take photographs. CPS did interview the children, however, it was in their own home and both parents were still present. As a result, all the children denied any allegations at the time. When the parents were spoken to, they presented it as if it was because all the kids came from abused homes and had food insecurities and other kind of proclivities. A medical evaluation was requested and completed by the parents. All children except one were noted to be below their growth chart, but the doctor noted nothing of concern that they could see. 6 months later, the CPS report is complete, and while concerns are noted, lack of evidence is once again cited, and as such, the case is closed. In 2017, the family moved to Woodland, Washington. There, Sarah worked at Kohl's as the assistant store manager. By September of 2017, Dana Deckold's father called 911, and she is the neighbor of this new family, reporting that he believed the children were being abused. He said that at 1:30 a.m. one morning in September, Hannah jumped out of her window on the second story and ran to Dana and Bruce's, begging Dana to hide her. Soon after, Jen and Sarah came to the house, and Jen once again offered this explanation that Hannah was a drug baby and had emotional issues, and sometimes it got out of hand. They returned back to Dana's home at around 6:30 a.m., and the family and Hannah were there. Hannah had written an apology to the neighbors saying she really just had a bad week and was emotional about it. Dana said she was going to call the police, but when Jen gave her that information, she sold it so well that Dana decided not to make the call. Fortunately, that's why the father did. But still, nothing comes of this. On March 15th, 2018, it's Devontae's turn to go to the Deckolds. He asked for food, mentioning it should go to the fence line so Jen and Sarah wouldn't see it. They gave him food, and Devontae kept coming back, asking for more and more, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. Dana reported she realized he was asking for staples, not anything extraordinary. And this occurred all the way through March 23rd, and each time he kind of gives more and more information to Dana about what's going on in the Hart home. Eventually, on the 23rd, Devontae stated that everything Hannah had been saying when she freaked out that night, it was true, the abuse and the starvation as punishment. It was at this point Dana decided she had enough information to call CPS and get somebody to listen to the claims. CPS did indeed come out the 23rd. 2 days before the crash, Sarah sent out a text to a different manager reporting that she was sick and she might need to see a doctor at around 3 a.m. By Sunday, the store and other employees still didn't hear anything. A coworker, Cheryl, stated she was normally dependable, and so it made everyone in the store a little worried. On Monday, there was still nothing. So Cheryl called 911 requesting a welfare check. 10 minutes later, she received a return call from an officer. That officer asked if Cheryl knew anything about the children being starved. The officer stated that he had already been out to the residence earlier that day at the request of CPS. The family had packed up and were presumed to be on the run. Police did go out and made entry, and there they found a neat and tidy house with food out, but nothing else out of the ordinary to find at the time. CPS and investigators began to speak with each other, and a disturbing history finally starts to find the light. As with all these stories, it seems the puzzle is put together far too late. Meanwhile, in looking for people who knew the Harts, investigators from the crash found family in South Dakota, specifically Jen's aunt, who had seen the children within the last 6 months and knew the family the best out of pretty much anybody in the extended family. She helped positively identify those that were in the car through information she was able to provide. As the case breaks, a news agency realized they had recently interviewed Devante after seeing his free hug sign at an event. This reporter sends someone out to the house to see if they can find any further information for themselves. At the house, they still see a CPS card in the doorframe of the front door. As part of their own investigation, they went to the neighbors to dig up information. They found Dana Deckard. She told them about the food issues. Devante had been coming over and asking for food, and so now even the media is catching up with the full picture in this case. Police also entered the home and, during searches of the home electronics, find the following Google searches. Quote, can 500 milligrams of Benadryl kill a 120-pound woman? What over-the-counter medications can you take to overdose? How can I easily overdose on over-the-counter medications? Is death by drowning relatively painless? How long does it take to die from hypothermia in the water while drowning in a car? End quote. Meanwhile, accident investigators come out and complete a forensic investigation. No skid marks are noted at the scene, and there's no indication of seatbelt use for anyone in the vehicle. The vehicle's computer determined that there was no braking, and actually the speedometer was locked out at approximately 90 miles an hour, suggesting that somebody put the pedal to the floor and had a rapid acceleration. At this point, the sheriff reported this was an act of homicide, not an accident, officially labeling it and putting it out on the news. On April 7th, Sierra Hart was found off the coast near the crash site. Then, on April 13th, toxicology results return, and there's a 0.12 alcohol content for Jen, while Sarah and the children had significant amounts of diphenhydramine, or Benadryl. The announcement is once again made public, and the amount of diphenhydramine in the children's system would have been enough to knock them all out. Sarah's was elevated, but not enough to be lethal. CHP investigator Slates reported, quote, Sarah would have had to have taken 42 single dosage units of Benadryl. Marcus would have taken 19.2. Abigail would have taken 14, and Jeremiah would have taken 8.8 single dosage units, end quote. So, they were given a lot of Benadryl. On May 9th, on the beach near the cliff, a shoe and foot bones are found, along with jeans with the letter H in it, meaning they believe they recovered part of Hannah, and eventually DNA would confirm. But at that point, one of the investigators realized that was all likely they were going to recover, and according to her, the ocean claimed Devante. A coroner's inquest started on April 3rd, 2019, at the behest of Thomas Alman, the sheriff who investigated this case. He didn't just want the results to be filed and the case to be done. Instead, they wanted it to be completed to make sure the information got out there, so that it wasn't simply labeled as a traffic accident. And so, a trial was held, and after which, within an hour, the jury found that all of the children were murdered at the hands of another. For Sarah and Jen, the findings were suicide. One of the jurors, Tony Howard, stated of the inquest, quote, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. Coming up with the decision wasn't the hard part. Dealing with the whole tragedy was the hard part, end quote. And with that, that is the tragedy of the Hart children and the entire family. To all those out there listening, be careful. It really is a dangerous world we live in.